Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories, where we play tales to take you away from today. On the podcast this week, we have a wood carving that travels through time, a stagecoach that travels through Fort Laramie, and we visit August 3rd, 1943. Want more?
Why?
Okay. Rudyard Kipling visits with one of his classic stories called How the Whale Got Its Throat. It all begins with this 5-minute mystery.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being presented by Public Telephones. We may be rare, but we still exist. What do you say we start a rebellion, bring back the public telephone, and bash the cell phone industry in the mouth? Think about it. Do you really need that smartphone?
Captain Randall, good afternoon. Mr. Randall, just a moment, please.
Randall speaking.
Hello, Jim. This is Tony, Mary's brother.
Well, Tony, my boy, how are you?
Oh, fine as silk. Just flew in from Cleveland for the big race at Diamond Track.
Welcome to New York. Where are you now, Tony?
Down at the track. Thought we could drive out to your home tonight and surprise my sister. I haven't seen her in a couple of years.
That's swell. Give me a call when you get back in the city, and we'll drive out together. Mary will be thrilled.
Be sure not to tell her I'm in town. I want to surprise her.
Okay, Tony. See you later. Here we are, Tony.
Hey, your place looks swell, John. You've done a lot of work on it since I was last here.
Yes, Mary and I have worked hard on this property. I can't wait to see Mary's face when she sees you.
Neither can I.
Mary! Hello, Mary! Darling, where are you?
Maybe she went out to the store or a friend's house.
Well, not Mary. She makes a point of being here when I get home. Or else she tells me where she'll be.
You're a lucky guy.
I'll say. Hello, Mary! I'll appear in the sitting room. Mary! Mary!
Hold it, John. There's nothing we can do. She's dead. John, you've got to pull yourself together. The inspector will be here any minute.
Pour me a drink, will you, Tony? I'll be all right, I guess. I'll go. Inspector?
Yes, Inspector Abbott.
Come in, Mr. Abbott. I'm John Randall. This is my wife's brother, Anthony Marin. Inspector?
How do you do? I'm sorry about your wife, Mr. Randall.
Thanks, Inspector.
I don't want to seem cold-blooded, Mr. Randall, but we may as well begin the investigation.
Well, my wife's in here, Inspector.
Not a pretty sight. One bullet through the left temple. No sign of a struggle. Your wife must have been resting, which gave the murderer a perfect opportunity. I should say she's been dead for at least 3 hours.
Did the end come quickly, Inspector?
Yes, I'm sure she never knew a thing. Where were you, Mr. Randall, this afternoon around 3 o'clock?
At the Midston building where I work. I made one business call over on the east side. Had an appointment at 2:30. I took about an hour.
I see. And you, Mr. Marin?
I flew in from Cleveland this morning. Arrived at about 1:30 and went straight to the Diamond racetrack.
Yes, Inspector. Tony called me from the track shortly before I left the office.
I can't believe that Mary's gone. Who could have wanted to murder her?
I haven't had the time to figure out the reason why, but I know who did the murder.
Inspector Abbott, you mean that...
I mean that Anthony Marin murdered his own sister.
What was the clue that led Inspector Abbott to accuse Tony Marin of murder? In a moment, the inspector will tell you, but first...
Okay, that copper is way off track. I was watching Emerald Downs a few months ago, and there were phones everywhere the eye could see. Selfies, Instagrams, snapshot, and even...
Ron, this was 70 years ago.
Oh, never mind. This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by the public telephone of the 1940s, a glorious victory of the time.
And now, back to our story.
Mr. Marin became an immediate suspect when he telephoned you, Mr. Randall, from the Diamond racetrack. It is ironic indeed that you had advance knowledge of his mistake. Perhaps murder could have been avoided had you known that at racetracks there are no public telephones.
So, the guy went to the track, huh? He should have known that there were no public telephones there. Will criminals ever learn? Now, I tried to research this, but alas, I could find nothing on the subject. Oh well. This 5-minute mystery was presented by public telephones. They may be rare, but still exist. Let's start a rebellion, bring back the public telephone, and bash the cell phone industry in the mouth. Think about it, don't you?
What's that you say?
I have to say, you guys are becoming more active with the show every week, and I love it. Thank you so much for all the comments, suggestions, and stories. The most often asked question I get is, how do I get you my story? Well, we've talked about this before, but I think it's worth going over again. There are basically 3 ways to tell your story. You can tell it to me and I will write it up. You can write it up yourself and send it to me via email or the comments section. Or you can come and tell it on the show live. The choice is yours, and I do hope you make that choice. Everyone has a story to tell, and we want to hear it. This week, I got this email from Emma Mills, Jackson Township, New Jersey. Emma writes, "Thank you for your podcast. I listen each week and love all the stories. I was inspired by Tom from Germany to send this story in. His frog story happened to me, kind of, but not exactly the same. I hope you like it and use it on Ron's Amazing Stories. Emma." I'm old now. It's amazing to me to think that this story happened over 40 years ago. I was just married to John, and it was the summer of 1976. Everyone was celebrating that summer. America had just had its 200th birthday. We had gone to a celebration, and there were booths everywhere. We stopped at a woodcarver station that proclaimed that they would carve your statue while you waited. We were hooked, paid the price, and posed for a Polaroid. They told us to come back in an hour to pick it up. We went around the fair, doing all manner of things, and forgot all about the carving. It wasn't until we were driving home that John remembered it. We tried to go back, but the traffic was terrible, and so we decided that we would go back the next day. When we got there, we saw that the woodcarver's booth was gone, and were told that they had only paid for 1 day. Dejected, we tried to find them in the phone book. Nothing. You see, there's no internet in those days. So we resolved to our fate and cursed our forgetfulness. Fast forward 10 years. John and I were in New York City for his work. I decided to go along because I've always wanted to visit Coney Island in Brooklyn. So I met a friend, and we went while John did the work thing. Coney Island is amazing. If you've never gone, it's like stepping back in time. There are shops, rides, foods, everywhere. I was very much reminded of that day 10 years before in New Jersey. I even mentioned it to my friend. She and I were walking along the boardwalk when we saw a familiar sign. Carve your statue while you wait. We walked up to the shop window, and there were several carvings displayed. One of them looked very familiar. I could not believe my eyes. There was John and I. We were locked in that very same pose we did 10 years before. I was shocked. We quickly went into the store and went right to the statue. I picked it up, and it was us. The Polaroid we took was even underneath it. Carved into the nameplate was John and Emma, Happy 4th, 1976. How could this be? I went to the counter and told my story. The girl there went into the back, and out came the very same man, 10 years later, that had carved us. He smiled widely, as if he even recognized us. All he said was, You sure waited a long time to pick up your carving, yes? We took many pictures that day, none of which turned out, by the way. There's still no internet in 1987. That statue is still with us today. It is now officially considered vintage and is well on its way to the title of Antique. Emma from New Jersey. I love today's old-time radio story. It speaks to things that are as important today as they were in the 1880s. Not everything is as it seems, and we shouldn't judge, less'n we want to be judged. Our story comes from Fort Laramie, which was a CBS Radio Western series starring Raymond Burr as Captain Lee Quince. It aired Sunday afternoons, January through October in 1956. The show's producers wanted to be as close to reality as possible. The names used for places, buildings, and some of the people were real. Our tale is called Stagecoach Stop, and it first aired on April 15th, 1956.
At the gallop! Oh! Fort Laramie. Fort Laramie, starring Raymond Burr as Captain Lee Quince. Specially transcribed tales of the dark and tragic ground of the wild frontier, the saga of fighting men who rode the rim of empire, and the dramatic story of Lee Quince, Captain of Cavalry.
Easy, boy. Feels good, don't it?
You got the whole day, Harrison?
Oh, I'm moving, Sergeant.
Well, that mount will chill and die of pneumonia. You don't rub 'em brisk and get some elbow grease behind it.
Yes, sir, Sergeant. Why you suppose he does it, Sergeant?
Who does what?
Captain Quince. Up Fort Reveille he was, and off and riding.
Habit, maybe. It was a clean morning, had a feel to it. Riding off alone? I'd like that myself.
There's a touch of spring in there, all right. Buffalo grass as green as can be. I was down at the corral this morning, and even at low water, the old Laramie was rippling along like it had a song in it.
Harrison.
Yes, Sergeant?
You think you could manage to blanket that mount before you write your next poem?
Oh, I guess I'm holding you up.
Captain says he threw a nail. I told him I'd see the farrier got a look at it.
Right 4 foot, looks like. I meant to see to it.
I got business at the saddlery anyway.
Sergeant, I'd sure admire some outdoor duty today if you could arrange it.
Stable details, sort of outdoors, Harrison. In and out.
I was thinking more like the hay yard, or lending a hand in the post garden, or like that. I'd be obliged.
Anything outdoors?
Anything at all, Sergeant.
You see up there on the bluff by the old cemetery?
I'm looking that way.
That white patch, top of the rise?
Oh, sure. I see that.
Well, now, that's a patch of wild daisies, Harrison. Anybody asks, you tell them you got my leave to go up there and pick them.
Oh, Sergeant.
It's outdoor work.
I don't aim to get myself laughed right off this post.
It'd be a useful service you was performing, Harrison. Officers are having a fancy ball tonight at Old Bedlam. Well, they might give a stripe or two to the trooper who saw to their decorations.
I tell you, Sergeant, I like this stable detail just fine. More I think of it, more I like it.
Glad to oblige. Any time, Harrison.
Now, getting me 3 stripes someday, like as not, I'll mosey all over the post, too, on a fine spring day.
I could make them daisies in order, Harrison.
Why, look down there, Sergeant Gorse. Ain't that a stage coming over the bridge?
It is. Well, he's riding on a flat wheel.
Yeah, maybe that's why he's pulling into the fort this time of day.
Being the wheelwright so near the smithy and the saddlery, I'll just mosey on down there and see what's going on. Give me that lead rope, soldier.
No, here.
Get to your duty, Daisy.
Oh, yes, Sergeant.
But what do you mean we'll have to put up here for the night? This is an army post. Now, Opie, settle yourself this minute. There's nothing but men here.
Now, ma'am, there ain't a stage built that'll run on 3 wheels.
But an army post? Why, we're women.
Well, be that as it may, we gotta put up here. It took all I had and then some to bring us clean to the fort. Now, the wheelwright tells me he can put us on the trail by sunup, and that's the level best we can do.
I declare, I don't know what. Homer off there in Virginia City, waiting for Opie and me?
Well, you could maybe telegraph ahead if you think your husband will worry after you.
Well, I don't know what to make of you. Of course he'll worry. Homer's bound to worry. His wife and baby girl spending the night in the middle of nowhere at an army post.
Oh, Ma.
Opie, if you Ma me once more, I'll bang you with my umbrella.
Oh, but there's one, Ma, coming right up to us.
One what?
A soldier, Ma.
Oh, Sergeant Gorse.
Stand right behind me, Opie.
Wheelwright says you got trouble, Clay.
Yeah, all kinds, Sergeant. Oh, meet up with Mrs. Kleinhexel. Her daughter, Miss Opie, Sergeant Gorse.
Ma'am? Miss Opie?
Are you in charge here, young man?
Well, no, ma'am. Not exactly.
Then I demand to be taken to whoever is. I want to telegraph Homer. I want to see with my own eyes the quarters for my daughter and me.
Homer, ma'am?
That's Mr. Kleinhexel. He's in Virginia City.
Oh.
Are you listening to me, young man?
Why, yes, ma'am. I do. Clay, where you going?
Well, I'm pretty sure that wheelwright needs a hand. I sure thank you for taking over this way, Sergeant.
Hey, now, Clay,
We've had no food since breakfast, young man. That'll have to be taken care of. Now, those carpet bags over there are ours, and they were brand new when we left Omaha. So, mind you, tend them easy. Who did you say was in charge here?
Well, I didn't say, ma'am, but offhand, I'd say you was.
Opie, simmer down.
And I just wondered if you were in my position, what would you do, Captain?
What?
What would you do?
I'm afraid I haven't been listening, Mr. Syberts. I'm sorry. What would I do about what?
Would you go alone if you didn't have a young lady to escort? To the officers' ball tonight.
Oh, good Lord, I'd forgotten about that.
It's the first one since I've been here.
If you're smart, you'll get up a poker game. You could play right here in my quarters if you want.
Well, I was rather looking forward to the ball.
I'd sooner ride into an ambush.
You know, it's hard to picture in your mind a ball right here in Old Bedlam. It doesn't seem part of the West somehow.
It shouldn't be part of it. You want a cigar, Syberts?
No, thank you, sir. Captain, you don't talk like you're planning to attend this evening.
I'm not.
You sure?
Mr. Seibert's, the last ball I attended was on an order. Besides, I have some work I want to do tonight, if I can get the Major's permission.
Well, I don't know, and it's your business, all right, sir, but she thinks you're going to the ball.
She?
Miss Willa. I was over at the sutler store this morning, and Pliny, Mr. Burgess gave me his leave to ask Miss Willa to the ball.
Well?
But she means to go with you, Captain.
I don't know why. I didn't ask her.
She seems right sure you will, though, before the day's out.
Oh?
She seems content just to wait for you.
Miss Willa's a pretty thing. She makes a mistake, though, waiting for anyone.
Captain, I wouldn't have asked her, but there aren't many single ladies to choose from.
I've got no claim on Miss Willa, Mr. Seiberts, if that's what you mean.
No, it's more her claim I was thinking about. She's set on you, Captain Quince.
That's a pure waste. Who is it?
Captain Quince, Lieutenant Seiberts.
Major Daggett.
Sir.
As you were, gentlemen. This isn't exactly official business.
Yes, sir.
I just looked in the ballroom on the way up. Looks like things are taking shape for tonight.
Yes, sir, they are. Mrs. Daggett and the other wives are doing a fine job with the decorations.
Well, they enjoy that sort of thing. It's time we had some festivity around here.
Yes, sir.
That what you came to tell us, Major?
I expect to see you both there, Captain Quince.
There's something I want to talk to you about, Major.
Both of you there. I don't know whether you've heard yet or not, but we have some guests on the post. Mrs. Kleinhexel from Omaha and her daughter. Their stage broke down. They'll be with us overnight.
The daughter, sir.
What about her, Mr. Seiberts?
Well, sir, in the interest of showing Fort Laramie's hospitality, what I mean is, if she's not otherwise engaged, I'd be proud to see her to the ball tonight.
I think that's a good idea, Seiberts.
I would like to discuss something, Major.
Yeah, so would I, Captain Quince.
Then if you'll excuse me, Major, Captain.
Mr. Seiberts, you'll find the young lady and her mother quartered next to the sutler's store.
Yes, sir.
Well, Lee?
If we can forget that pink tea a while, Major.
I told you, Lee, I expect you at that ball tonight. This is no mere whim of mine, and if I have to order you to be there, I will.
We're not going to see eye to eye on that ever.
You understand all about troop morale in the field. I never knew an officer to show greater concern for his men. But I think you owe something to your fellow officers, Captain.
What do you mean?
There's such a thing as post morale, too. The junior officers admire you, they respect you. It'll mean something to them to see you sharing their off-duty entertainment, relaxation. You're a hard man to know, Lee.
Especially in a ball.
I wouldn't insist if I didn't think it was important.
I've been trying to tell you what I think's important ever since you came in.
All right.
Yellow Horse. He's still in the stockade.
Yes, I know that. But I can't send him to Leavenworth till I receive orders from Washington. So far, they haven't come through.
Can't you telegraph Washington?
In an emergency.
His renegade band of Sioux is still marauding.
Tell me, does this have any connection with the fact that you left the post alone before Reveille this morning?
I rode out to the reservation. Had a long talk with Eagle Wing.
I hope he understood it was unofficial, Captain.
Eagle Wing and I talked only as men interested in peace.
Well, at least he isn't a hostile. And no great friend of Yellow Horse, as I remember.
He says a few of Yellow Horse's old band have come onto the reservation in the last few weeks. That could mean trouble, Major.
A few hostiles on a reservation of 4,000? I don't think so, Captain.
I'm not talking about a Sioux uprising. I'm talking about maybe 6 hostiles thinking to set Yellow Horse free.
Eagle Wing said this?
I say it. It could happen.
Suppose it could. I don't think it's likely.
I do. This band's never had a leader like Yellow Horse. He never killed for gain or because the whites invaded his hunting grounds. He killed to kill because he loved to kill. He's their inspirational leader. They'll come after him.
All right, Lee. What is it you want?
Move Yellow Horse.
Move him?
Yeah, over to Fort Kearney. Small details starting at dusk.
I don't like it, Lee.
He'd be that much closer to Leavenworth.
No, I can't risk it. I'm on orders to secure Yellow Horse at Fort Laramie. I'd need more reason than you give me to go against them.
Then I've said my piece, Major.
Lee, you feel pretty keenly about this. Why?
Maybe it's not important.
I asked you a question.
All right. Call it a symbol. We could have killed him when we took him. But we held something out to the Indians. A fair trial. White man's justice.
Yellow Horse was tried fairly.
And sentenced fairly. The Indians know that. Yellow Horse should pay for his killing. Legally. If an escape is arranged, even if he's killed in the attempt, he's a martyr to every red man because a white man killed him.
Sure, I don't disagree with any of that, Lee.
But your answer's still the same.
It has to be. My orders are clear. I have to respect them. I wish I could count on your understanding.
I wish I could give it to you, Major.
All right, Captain. We both had our say. Now let's forget it. I'd like you to join my party this evening.
That an invitation, sir?
That is an order, Captain.
Yes, sir.
Well, I wouldn't have believed it. It's a regular store.
Yes.
I declare, Mr. Burgess, it's the equal of anything we have in Omaha.
Oh, yes, it is. Chicago, New York, Boston. Yeah. Pliny Burgess bows to no one when it comes to merchandise.
Now, this bowl of cloth. Ophi, just look at the quality.
Those threads. Pure gold, madam. Pure gold.
Why, there's no such thing.
Well, in color, I mean. Yes, pure gold.
Oh, well, yes. I see they are. Oh, Ophi, will you stop clutching me so?
Ma, it's another one.
Oh, my. Well, he's just another soldier, Ophi. You'd best get used to the sight of them. They're all over out here.
Afternoon to you, Captain Quince.
Miss Willow around, Pliny?
To the back, with the account books as usual, Captain.
Thank you.
My sakes, he's a big one.
Yeah, oh, yes, he is.
Now, Ophi, you stop making eyes this minute. You've been spoke for by that other one, and he's a lieutenant.
Lovely girl. Shy, but she's a lovely girl.
Miss Willa.
Well, yes.
I have a good account, right?
Hello, Lee.
Hello.
Well, come on in.
If you're busy, why, we can forget about it.
No, you'll not get off that easy. I'm not busy, and I've been expecting you.
You shouldn't wait for me, Willa. You know that.
Sit down, Lee.
Thanks.
I don't wait for you. As you say, I know better than that. I wait for Major Daggett.
How's that?
Sooner or later, he always orders you to attend the ball. And when he does, sooner or later, you decide you'd rather escort me than dance with ranking officers' wives the entire evening.
That the way it is?
I'm afraid so. But that's not a complaint. I'll be ready at 8.
All right.
Don't look so trapped, Lee. You're not, you know.
I wasn't thinking about me.
Don't worry about me. I understand. It's a lovely day. It'll be a lovely evening, Lee.
Yeah. It looks like Mr. Syberts is going to have a lovely evening, too.
Oh, poor Ophi.
Poor Syberts. You could have spared him that if you'd accepted him instead of waiting around for...
For Major Daggett.
Yeah, for Major Daggett.
Good heavens, what...
Get him out of here, sandwiches! It's not safe! Sandwiches!
Madam, please.
Get him out!
You're perfectly safe, madam. Now.
Me no do nothing. Walk in store, do nothing.
We'll be killed! We'll all be killed!
What's wrong out here?
Oh, I got an awful fright! Get him out of here!
Hey, take the girl, Willa.
Come along, Ophi. It's all right.
Yes, tell her it's all right, Captain. It's the engine. She's not used to the sight of them.
Captain, white woman, bad spirit?
No, White Bird. She's just frightened.
White Bird frightened, too. Him do nothing.
He walked in here. Big as life. That's what he did. Right in the store, mind you, like he was a
Human being?
Yes. Like he was a human being.
Is that all he did?
Well, yes. But if I hadn't cried the alarm, we'd have all been massacred. That's what they do, you know.
White Bird go. Come later to trade.
Well, now, you bring silver and more blankets, White Bird?
Trade for food. Come back later when bad spirit and white woman go.
Well, I never. You people dealing with him, trading like he was a...
He's a reservation Indian, ma'am. He's all right.
Oh, yes. I would like to look at what he has to offer, Captain.
Well, go on into the storeroom. Make your trades.
Yes, sir.
Go on. It's all right, White Bird.
Why, of course. Come on, White Bird. Come on.
And see you trade him fair, Pliny.
Oh, I'm the soul of honor, Captain.
Yeah. You, feel better, ma'am?
You've done nothing to make me feel better. I see you're mighty solicitous about your savage in there. But not so much as a kind word for a frightened white woman.
Sorry, ma'am. We know White Bird. He's our friend. We've lived with him. But we've no mind to be unkind to strangers.
You mean to say that Indians have the run of this fort, young man?
Some Indians, the ones we know and trust. Ones who trust us. You'll find that in the West.
But what about all the killing? The massacres, that's all you hear in Omaha and near all you read. How many whites the red savages have murdered. Now I say that's true or it isn't.
Some of it is, ma'am. Indians are like us. There's good and bad. We've got a bad one on the post, Yellow Horse. But he's in the stockade.
That's as it should be. You think that, don't you?
I think that.
Well, it's a pity you can't tell by looking.
Oh, you can sometimes if you know what to look for. But that comes with knowing folks. White men or red men.
At face value, it's a risky business, young man. Many's the time I've been dead wrong in judging a body on first sight, I mean. Of course, I'm talking about white folks.
You planning to live in the West, ma'am?
Virginia City. Homer's out there now. Opie and me are going to him. Sakes, I guess I got a lot of learning ahead of me. A lot of learning.
Sergeant? Over here, Sergeant.
Oh, yes, sir. Captain?
Finished eating, Gores?
Yes, sir. Ate plenty, too. Good thing I got no bars on my shoulders. I'd be right too stuffed to waltz tonight.
That so?
Fine spring evening for a flock of fancy waltzes, though.
All right, Sergeant, you're making your point.
Yes, sir.
You, got any plans for tonight after tattoo?
Oh, I drew some duty, Captain.
Duty?
Kind of special duty, too. Orders come down from Major Daggett to double the guard at the stockade. Well, I figured you'd know that.
No. No, I didn't.
Ain't they sending Yellow Horse on to Leavenworth before long?
That's up to Washington.
Yeah. Sure got a lot of time back there, ain't they, Captain?
Seems like it. Sometimes.
Did you have something you wanted me to do tonight?
No. No, nothing.
Well, before I told you about the duty, you asked about my plans, Captain.
You answered my questions.
Yes, sir.
That's all, Sergeant.
If anything comes up at the stockade, I'll see you hear about it, sir.
You'll report to Major Daggett.
Yes, sir.
Good night, Gorse.
Captain?
Yeah?
It's a right smart sash you're wearing.
Good night, Gorse.
Yes, sir.
She's been trying to get your attention for the last half hour, Lee.
Who has?
Mrs. Kleinhexel, and you haven't even asked her to dance yet either.
I know, but I...
Shh, here she comes.
Excuse me, you two, but I've got to have word to this young man. I'm sending the lieutenant to dance with you, dearie.
Captain Quince was just on his way over to you, Mrs. Kleinhexel. I'll find Lieutenant Syberts.
Well, shall we, Captain?
Proud to, ma'am.
I could waltz with a glass of water on my head and never spill a drop. That's what Homer always says.
You try it with me, ma'am. You stand a chance of drowning.
There's good humor in you, young man. I like that.
Thank you.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I wanted to tell you, I went out on the veranda for a breath of air a while back. And when I first saw them, I came near to screaming like I did this afternoon with the other Indian.
You're developing a real eye for Indians, ma'am.
Yes, I am. I've been trying to recollect, though. I don't believe he was wearing them in the store today.
White bird? Wearing what?
The feathers.
No, ma'am, he wasn't wearing feathers.
I didn't think so. Now, these Indians was. Well, maybe it suits their fancy.
You're sure they were wearing feathers?
I just told you. There was 5 or 6, I guess.
Excuse me, ma'am. I have to speak to the major.
Now, what's wrong with feathers?
Major Daggett, sir! Where are those shots coming from, Captain?
That's a stockade, Major. Syberts! Lawson! Let's go! 6 of them. All dead, Sergeant?
Dead Injuns, Captain. Good thing you doubled the guard, Major.
What about Yellow Horse?
Oh, he was whooping for a while. But I checked him. He's got his health, all of it.
Captain.
Yes, sir?
Fall in a detail. I want Yellow Horse on his way to Leavenworth no later than noon tomorrow. Any questions?
Just one, sir. What about Washington?
I'll telegraph Washington tonight. Oh, Captain.
Yes, Major.
Thank you.
Fort Laramie is produced and directed by Norman MacDonald and stars Raymond Burr as Lee Quince, Captain of Cavalry, with Vic Perrin as Sergeant Gorse. The script was specially written for Fort Laramie by Kathleen Height, with sound patterns by Bill James and Ray Kemper, musical supervision by Amerigo Marino. Featured in the cast were Jeanette Nolan, Sam Edwards, Eleanor Tannen, Harry Bartell, Jack Moyles, Shirley Mitchell, Howard McNear, Frank Cady, and Jack Crucian.
Company, tension! Dismiss.
Next week, another transcribed story of the Northwest frontier and the troopers who fought under Lee Quince, Captain of Cavalry. comes an emergency, it's savings that talk. When sickness strikes, in time of accident or emergency, it helps to be in good financial shape. That's why it pays and pays to invest in United States savings bonds regularly. Have the money deducted automatically through payroll savings or through your bank's bond-a-month plan. Let the bonds you've saved save you when you need money. The new 3% interest United States savings bond, better than ever. This has been a public service message from CBS Radio.
Pretty cool story, and there's a lot of truth to be had in this one. First, it was a real place. The real Fort Laramie had 400 troops in all, and they had to keep their eye on a nearby Indian reservation with 4,000 Sioux camped there. The show was produced and directed by Norman Macdonald, who wanted to create a Western drama that depicted life at Old Fort Laramie during the 19th century. The 41 episodes all starred Raymond Burr as Lee Quince. 1 year later, Burr would become a television star as Perry Mason. How about that? The date is September 3rd, 1943, and this is A Moment in Time. I was going through the archive and I found this little gem. It appears that the British really did like their live broadcasts. This one comes from the cockpit of a British Lancaster, which is a long-distance bomber, and guess what? You are there.
Hello, Skipper. Hello, Navigator. Half a minute to go. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, keep weaving, Ken. There's quite a lot of night stuff coming up as well, falling off a bit low. Hello, engineer. Skipper here. Yeah? Will you put the revs up, please? Yeah? Okay, keep weaving. A lot of searchlights and fighter flares, Skipper. Yeah, keep on. Okay, boys, okay. Left. You can... Bomb doors open. Hello, Bombardier. Okay when you are. Bomb doors open. Bomb doors open, Bombardier. Right. Steady. Bomb's going in a minute. Bomb. Hey, Jimmy, trade to behind us. Bomb, steady, man. Hurry up, Jimmy, hold it up. Where is he, rear gunner? Can you see him? Down! He's chopped down. He's chopped down. Did you shoot him down? Yeah, he's got him, boy, right in the middle. Bloody good. Bloody good. Taken, keep weaving, and some slack coming at me. Okay, don't shout all at once. All right. Photograph taken. Okay, photograph taken. Hello, Skipper. Will you turn on to 081? Right, 081, Navigator. Don't all speak at once now. Keep quiet, it's okay. Okay, it's go. Hello, mid-gunner. Did you recognize that fighter you shot on? No, I didn't recognize it, but it's definitely going down now. Good, Jimmy. I can see him, boy. Good show. I can see him now. Yeah, look at him burning. Doesn't he look lovely? Good show, lads. Now keep your eyes open. Okay, Ken.
Today, the 3rd of September, we enter the 5th year of the war. And today, the 8th Army, having fought its way from Egypt to Tunisia and then crossed the seas to Sicily, has landed on the mainland of the continent of Europe. We have a good plan and air support on a greater scale than we have ever had before. There can only be one end to this next battle, and that is another success. Forward to victory. Let us knock Italy out of the war.
The Avaro Lancaster is one of the most famous and successful RAF heavy bombers of World War II. It is a legend that lives on today. The prototype Lancaster took to air for its first flight from Woodland, Manchester on the 9th of January in 1941. The first production Lancaster flew later that year in October. If you like these moments in time and have a special request, please let me know and I'll see what I can do. Until next time, this has been A Moment in Time.
As read by. Amazing stories read by amazing people.
This time on As Read By, we have a story by Rudyard Kipling called How the Whale Got His Throat. This is definitely a children's story, but after I listened to it, I just had to share it. I've always been fond of this kind of tale. I'm not sure why. Maybe after you hear it, you'll love it too. It comes to us from the folks at LibriVox.org and is read by Anne's man and Thomas's dad. Nope, I didn't make that up.
Rudyard Kipling's How the Whale Got His Throat from the Just So stories. In the sea, once upon a time, O my best beloved, there was a whale, and he ate fishes. He ate the starfish and the garfish, and the crab and the dab, and the plaice and the dace, and the skate and his mate, and the mackerel and the pickerel, and the really truly twirly whirly eel. All the fishes he could find in the sea he ate with his mouth. So, till at last there was only one small fish left in all the sea, and he was a small 'stute fish, and he swam a little behind the whale's right ear so as to be out of harm's way. Then the whale stood up on his tail and said, "I'm hungry." And the small 'stute fish said in a small 'stute voice, "Noble and generous cetacean, have you ever tasted man?" "No," said the whale. "What is it like?" "Nice," said the small 'stute fish. "Nice, but nubbly." "Then fetch me some," said the whale, and he made the sea froth up with his tail. "One at a time is enough," said the 'stute fish. "If you swim to latitude 50 north, longitude 40 west, that is magic, you will find, sitting on a raft in the middle of the sea, with nothing on but a pair of blue canvas breeches, a pair of suspenders, you must not forget the suspenders, best beloved, and a jackknife, one shipwrecked mariner, who, it is only fair to tell you, is a man of infinite resource and sagacity." So the whale swam and swam to latitude 50 north, longitude 40 west, as fast as he could swim, and on a raft, in the middle of the sea, with nothing to wear except a pair of blue canvas breeches, a pair of suspenders, you must particularly remember the suspenders, best beloved, and a jackknife, he found one single solitary shipwrecked mariner trailing his toes in the water. He had his mummy's leave to paddle, or else he never would have done it, because he was a man of infinite resource and sagacity. Then the whale opened his mouth back and back and back till it nearly touched his tail, and he swallowed the shipwrecked mariner and the raft he was sitting on, and his blue canvas breeches, and the suspenders, which you must not forget, and the jackknife. He swallowed them all down into his warm, dark inside cupboards, and then he smacked his lips, so, and turned round 3 times on his tail. But as soon as the mariner, who was a man of infinite resource and sagacity, found himself truly inside the whale's warm, dark inside cupboards, he stumped and he jumped and he thumped and he bumped, and he pranced and he danced and he banged and he clanged and he hit and he bit, and he leaped and he creeped and he prowled and he howled and he hopped and he dropped, and he cried and he sighed and he crawled and he bawled, and he stepped and he leapt and he danced hornpipes where he shouldn't, and the whale felt most unhappy indeed. Have you forgotten the suspenders? So he said to the 'stute fish, "This man is very nubbly, and besides he is making me hiccup. What shall I do?" "Tell him to come out," said the 'stute fish. So the whale called down his own throat to the shipwrecked mariner, "Come out and behave yourself. I've got the hiccups." "Nay, nay," said the mariner, "not so, but far otherwise. Take me to my natal shore and the white cliffs of Albion, and I'll think about it." And he began to dance more than ever. "You had better take him home," said the 'stute fish to the whale. "I ought to have warned you that he is a man of infinite resource and sagacity." So the whale swam and swam and swam, with both flippers in his tail, as hard as he could for the hiccups. and at last he saw the mariner's natal shore and the white cliffs of Albion, and he rushed halfway up the beach and opened his mouth wide and wide and wide and said, "Change here for Winchester, Ashuelot, Nashua, Keene, and stations on the Fitchburg Road." And just as he said "Fitch," the mariner walked out of his mouth. But while the whale had been swimming, the mariner, who was indeed a person of infinite resource and sagacity, had taken his jackknife and cut up the raft into a little square grating all running crisscross, and he had tied it firm with his suspenders. Now you know why you were not to forget the suspenders. And he dragged that grating good and tight into the whale's throat, and there it stuck. Then he recited the following sloka, which, as you have not heard it, I will now proceed to relate. By means of a grating, I have stopped your aiding. For the mariner, he was also an Hibernian. And he stepped out on the shingle, and he went home to his mother, who had given him leave to trail his toes in the water, and he married and lived happily ever afterward. So did the whale. But from that day on, the grating in his throat, which he could neither cough up nor swallow down, prevented him from eating anything except very, very small fish, and that is the reason why whales nowadays never eat men or boys or little girls. The small stupfish went and hid himself in the mud under the doorsills of the equator. He was afraid that the whale might be angry with him. The sailor took the jackknife home. He was wearing the blue canvas breeches when he walked out on the shingle. The suspenders were left behind, you see, to tie the grating with, and that is the end of that tale. When the cabin portholes are dark and green because of the seas outside, when the ship goes whop with a wiggle between, and the steward falls into the soup tureen, and the trunks begin to slide, when Nursey lies on the floor in a heap, and Mummy tells you to let her sleep, and you aren't waked or washed or dressed, why then you will know, if you haven't guessed, you're 50 north and 40 west. End of How the Whale Got His Throat by Rudyard Kipling.
This podcast. I don't have to tell you that I did. My thanks to Emma for her story this week. It was a fun one, and without any doubt, an amazing one. Jason and I are now working on the Horror Express number 16, and this one is going to be about out-of-body experiences. So, be looking out for that one. If you want to keep up with what's happening on Ron's Amazing Stories, please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or sign up for the weekly newsletter. All the links you'll need and access to the blog can be found at ronsamazingstories.com. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.